There we go. All right, looks like we're live now. Yeah, thank you for doing this, Mike. Just wanted to introduce you real quick. You're a core contributor to Archway, and you've been working on the project for a good amount. And I was kind of hoping we could start with just a little bit of your background.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for having us on, Johnny. It's a total honor. I appreciate that. As far as my background, my journey kind of started in traditional tech. I'd started working with like trading systems and financial platforms, kind of in the more traditional financial markets. So you can imagine it wasn't all that fulfilling. And so I was itching to find something with a bit more of a purpose that I could genuinely get into and kind of get revved up about. And so I made the leap to the startup world. I wound up joining a company that was building language translation tools for doctors and nurses to communicate with their patients who don't speak English. It's a long ways from crypto, but really fascinating space. You can imagine when a patient can't understand their doctor, a doctor can't understand the patient. Presents some pretty major problems, and it's a surprisingly large scale problem.
Yeah,
Especially in the U.S., there's tens of millions of people who need an interpreter, and very few get them. So yeah, that was kind of my foray into the startup world. I wound up running that company for a couple of years, and then over the course of 2017, the kind of the gravity well of crypto sucked me in. Just kind of learning a little bit here and there, being completely confused, but also very intrigued and curious, and starting to connect the dots. And then, deeper and deeper by the end of 2017, I decided I needed to jump in and go all in. And so, right around that time, I had joined a project called Loom Network, just as it was starting up. We were building some of the early L2s and scaling solutions for Ethereum, and we were also doing some developer education tools. If you've ever heard of crypto zombies, that's brought many engineers into the space and got them up to speed on Solidity and smart contracts and NFTs and all sorts of other fun things. And then we were
cool.
also yeah. Staying busy, and we were building dApps over there. Uh, Turned out Loom was a bit early. The market, the developers, the users weren't quite there back in 2018, 2019. And so the project pivoted a few times, ultimately never really found traction, and then much of the team left the space. But Loom was actually one of the first Tendermint-based chains to go live way back in March of 2018. And so I had been following and interacting with Cosmos for years. I'd always sort of believed in that vision of a multi-chain future, and saw Cosmos leading the pack. And so earlier this year, things were lining up really beautifully in Cosmos land with IBC going live. That was the great unlock. This grand vision became a reality, and we started to see more and more networks come online. I think I saw earlier this morning there's 25 now, which is just incredible. And then, getting to experience use cases like osmosis firsthand was really cool, and seeing these like beautifully executed applications that were showcasing IPC at scale. Was just super excited about Cosmos. Luckily, was able to connect with the team at Archway. It had immediately clicked for me, and so I officially made my way into the community and Archway this past summer. Lo and behold, I find myself here chatting with you, and yeah, what a ride.
Yeah, that sounds, I mean, almost like a natural transition.
Yeah, feels like it. It feels
Yeah.
like it.
And it's been kind of cool watching IBC like develop just over the span of this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And the momentum mounts. And so it just gets more exciting week by week.
Right. So yeah, let's move on to Archway. Do you want to fill us in on what Archway is? Tell us about the protocol and where the concept like came from?
Yeah, definitely. So Archway is an incentivized smart contract chain for Cosmos. And so the idea is for folks where it doesn't necessarily make sense to spin up your own independent chain. Archway is an open permissionless network where you can quickly deploy contracts and apps and plug directly into the broader Cosmos ecosystem via IBC. It's sort of an on-ramp into Cosmos without having to run your own chain. Instead, you deploy to an existing one. And there's a slight twist to Archway, but a very important one in that we've modified the economic model. So developer incentives are baked directly into the protocol itself. You can think of it similar to how validators are rewarded in a typical proof of stake network, right? They receive transaction fees and inflationary rewards in exchange for providing services to the network. We believe that developers are also critical network participants. I don't think anybody would really disagree with that. Um, and as such, right, they should be rewarded for the value that they contribute to the network. And so what we do with Archway is redirect a portion of those protocol level rewards straight back to developers. And so as a dApp brings value, as it generates usage on the network, they get a cut of the gas fees, they get a proportional share of the inflationary rewards. And then we have this third fee called contract premium, which is optional and the developer can define it themselves. But yeah, that's sort of the broad concept, and it originated from some of the early team members had been looking at building dApps, and when they kind of surveyed the smart contract landscape and some of the existing L1s, I think they became a little bit disenfranchised in that, as a developer, when you build a successful dApp, you're bringing users, you're bringing assets, you're bringing transactions, and you're creating a lot of value for the underlying network. But you don't necessarily capture any of that value that you're helping create. And so most of it inevitably flows to investors and whales and and folks like that. Um, and as a developer, you would need to personally buy into that network's token in order to get exposure and capture some of that upside. Um, and as we dug a little deeper, we looked at communities like Ethereum, what they were doing with EIP 1559, which is really clever and really interesting mechanism, right? Where they're burning these network fees to create kind of like a negative issuance. And so ETH, the token becomes a deflationary asset, which is really cool. And it's great if you're an investor or a large ETH holder, right? In theory, like if the asset becomes more scarce and demand remains the same or grows, then the token value goes up, which could be a beautiful thing. But as a dApp dev, on the other side of it, you're building these successful products, you're contributing that value to the network, but you're not seeing any of that upside. And so, in fact, it might actually be the opposite, right? Like if as that token appreciates, it becomes even more expensive for you as a developer and for your users to buy in and to transact. Gas fees go bonkers, and so it's not necessarily like a wrong or a right way to go about designing it. It's more of a design choice about who and how value on the network is distributed amongst participants. And so that's really what led to the idea behind Archway. And instead of burning those network fees to kind of like reduce the supply and up the price of the token, Archway is funneling those fees back to dApps and back to developers in the form of rewards, with the idea of just creating a completely new incentive model where as a developer you could tap into these recurring funding streams. You automatically get a stake in the underlying protocol, and so you can share it in the upside if it's successful. And then that also helps align the interests of the developer with the underlying protocol, Archway itself. And so yeah, we kind of think giving devs a true stake in the protocol makes for a more sustainable ecosystem over the long term.
Yeah, I can see that playing out. Cool. Well, you Sorry, did I cut out there for a sec?
You did very
Oh,
briefly, but we got you
okay.
back.
Yeah, I was gonna say that you kind of explained a little bit about how Archway is sort of incentivizing the developers. And I guess I was kind of wondering, what is the purpose of the Arch token then? Is that like, does that go straight to the developers, or how does that work?
Yeah, so the Arch token it will be a relatively standard proof of stake token. There's nothing too wild or innovative on that front, and so it will be used for native staking. It will be used to pay for gas fees. It will be used in governance, so to make deposits on proposals and to vote, and and then it will also be used for rewards distribution. So rewards back to validators, delegators, as well as dApps and developers.
Gotcha. So there will be just the one token.
Yes.
Cool. Kind of explains it pretty well. So what are the main use cases that you're seeing or envisioning for Archway? Like who's the target audience and who's going to be building on here?
Yeah, good question. So Archway itself is a general purpose smart contract platform. So it's built using CosmWasm, and that means really you can build any type of dApp that your heart desires. Whether it's DeFi, NFTs, DAOs, social, whether you want to do cat gifts or ape gifts, or you want to do like collateralized options or crazy on-chain derivatives. It is a general purpose smart contract platform.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as far as like the specific use cases where I think it gets really interesting for Archway and like some of the new possibilities that open up are really around the rewards. And so how it works with Archway is when you deploy a contract as a developer, you specify an owner address, and that's where all the fees and rewards will be automatically deposited to for your dApp. And there, and then from there, it's entirely up to you and or your dApp community to do whatever you think is most beneficial to within your ecosystem for those rewards. And so, some of the use cases that we've been thinking about and envisioning is if you had your own governance token, you could redirect these rewards back to your token holders, um, which I'm sure would make them happy. You could use it kind of in a more traditional business model where you just fund the core development team, or maybe you contribute to a community DAO and use that for community grants. I think what a lot of people will do is just recycle those rewards back towards sponsoring gas payments to just completely abstract that away from end users. Another interesting one is seeding or boosting liquidity incentives.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting about that for me is you can do it on a continual basis, given that the rewards are recurring, which is a little different than what a lot of the programs you see out in the market are kind of ephemeral, and they're temporary incentive programs that eventually dry up, and you
Yeah.
have these mercenary users who then go on to the next one. But given their network level rewards, they're recurring and they're sustainable. And then more recently, we've had some folks express interest around finding ways to redirect these rewards back to creators and artists within the context of NFTs. We've heard a lot. Those communities are really concerned with like the environmental aspect of these networks, but they're also, I think, a little apprehensive around the distribution of value, and so it could be a cool way to kind of funnel some of the value being created directly back to the artists. Um, and then we'll see. Like we don't really know. We're excited to get this out and live because truthfully, we don't know exactly what people will build, and like the design space is wide open. There's all sorts of possibilities, and so we're tuning in to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. It sounds like you're sort of building a foundation for more of a sustainable like smart contracts community in more than, obviously more than just like the rewards, but just in all of the ways that it functions.
Yeah, trying to just kind of take a fresh look at how we align the incentives of all of the network participants, right? From validators to delegators to community members, and of course developers.
Yeah, the devs, the users. So why build it on Cosmos? Like what strengths do you see here versus other platforms?
Oh yeah, Archway was really born of the Cosmos. Personally, I always saw this multi-chain world as inevitable, right? Like people would be experimenting with different ways of, different rule sets, different consensus models, different governance and economic models, and um, I think multi-chain is also a necessity to scale, right? Like the need to actually horizontally scale across many chains. And so everyone, it seems, is finally coming around to that. Like the broader market has acknowledged and accepted the fact that we're living in a multi-chain world. And I think it's hitting everyone that it's really hard to properly build for multi-chain. And that's something Cosmos has been designing and building for since day one. And so was able to do it really holistically, as
Hmm.
opposed to you know some of the hack jobs you might see where it's like stand up a last minute bridge, throw a multi-sig on it, it's a couple buddies and like their investor who own the keys. um, Cosmos is the antithesis of that scenario, and beyond that, just thinking about the core tech, right? The Cosmos stack is the most battle tested and flexible set of tools. So for Archway, it's built using Tendermint Core, which is the gold standard in proof of stake consensus. It's built on the Cosmos SDK, which is, gives us the flexible building blocks to actually build and customize and configure our own chain. Starport, which is basically the scaffolding to make that process really simple and quick and easy. I'd mentioned that we're using CosmWasm, and so that gives us this WASM VM and execution environment and contracts that are more secure. They're better performing. They're more flexible. And then of course IBC, right? As a true permissionless cross-chain communication protocol, there's only IBC. And so overall, it's really about like the advanced core infrastructure, like the development ecosystem around that, all the teams supporting it. I think the fact that these tools, they don't really have an opinionated, or at least they're not opinionated in their design. And so as a development team, that allows you to be flexible, and kind of extend and craft the tools to build your own unique solution. And then lastly, I would say the community. I think that's always something that has stood out to me is Cosmos is generally a little more accepting, a little more open, for the
Yeah.
most part supportive. Yeah, I think that's just sort of like inherent to the interchain mindset. Is like when you believe in a world of many chains, it's tough to be a tribal maxi.
You're like, these are my people.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like all the people. Yeah. No, I think that is definitely one of the things about Cosmos that really gives it its strength is it's not gated, and all of the tools are future facing. Like they're constantly maintained, they're built to last, and it really is a good dev environment.
yep, 100%.
Um, Speaking of dev environment, I guess what role do you see Archway playing within the Cosmos? How do you think it's going to make an impact? How will things change?
We see Archway being this kind of launch pad to Cosmos, kind of like I was alluding to before, right? It's sort of this on ramp for developers to quickly and easily deploy into the ecosystem.
Hmm.
And obviously the core Cosmos vision is this world of millions of app specific chains that are all interconnected, and we're getting there. making progress towards that vision, but I think the reality is not every project or developer wants their own chain just yet. There's, again, there's a lot of incredible work being done by teams like Starport to make that process way easier and kind of lower the technical barriers. And there's big initiatives like shared security that are going to be huge in just helping people bootstrap their own chain without having to actually go out and recruit an independent set of validators. And so so a lot of the existing barriers have been coming down, but I think even still, many people just wanted to quickly deploy an app. And I think we'll also see scenarios where people might start out with an application, just quickly deploy to an open shared chain, and then over time they may eventually graduate to their own independent chain, right? Once they hit a certain threshold or usage levels and they can justify it, they'll spin off and move to their own chain. And so where Archway fits in with all of that is it's kind of that entry point and a place to deploy those contracts and plug instantly into the broader ecosystem. And so we would see that some of that will be kind of homegrown applications and people that are building native experiences on Archway and Cosmos specifically. But then also, I think there's a lot of interest from other ecosystems. And so when you think about like Ethereum applications and Solana applications, there's a lot of users and assets and TVL within the Cosmos universe, and those applications are looking to tap those. And so in that sense, Archway for them represents sort of an on-ramp and a channel into Cosmos. And so it's kind of like another option to build and deploy on top of Cosmos, with the ultimate aim of just bringing in more developers, bringing in more users, and more assets.
Is that kind of how you guys got the name?
It is, yeah. Spot on.
There we go. It all makes sense now.
Ding, ding, got it.
I just wanted to say real quick, Mike, we do have a good amount of people watching, and they've been throwing a couple of messages in the chat log. Do you want to tackle some of those and then move on to some other stuff after?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, and yeah, just for those of you watching, feel free to post questions in the chat log, and we'll tackle them as we're going through. So it looks like Alex, just a couple minutes ago, wanted to ask about the testnet. When will testnet start?
Testnets have started. I see the question here. Yeah, so we've got 2 testnets that are up and live, Constantine and Titus. They launched, now it's probably about a month ago. And so you can head over to our doc site, docs.archway.io. Yeah, I'll drop it.
Yeah, there we go.
I'll drop it into the chat here. But yeah, the testnets are up and live, and people are building. We've released a dApp CLI. We're participating in the Hack Atom, by the way. Got my Hack Atom swag here. Just a quick PSA. Hack Atom's still going on. Submissions are due by tomorrow. But sorry, I digress. To your question, testnets are up and live and people are actively building. Head over to the doc site and we've got all the tools and materials there to help you get started. We just released a handful of front-end dApp examples and some starter code templates that will help you get started. And then also jump into the Discord. All of our team and our developers are there. We can field any questions you might have.
There we go. Yeah. I'll tag some of those links for you. And then we have one more question from Don't Be Sad. I missed the first 10 minutes of this. If tokenomics has not been talked about, can we touch base on that? I think he wants to know a little bit more about the purpose of the Arch token.
So yeah, we did hit on that probably in the first 10 minutes. And there's as I had mentioned, it's pretty standard. It's your standard proof of stake token. So it's used for native staking, for payment of gas fees, for rewards distribution for validators and delegators and in our case dApps. And then it's used in governance for making deposits on proposals and then for actually voting.
Yeah, we were talking about how the whole point of Archway is that the developers get incentive to be building. So some of those Arch tokens go to devs, right? Is that how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. So the developer rewards consist of, there's really three main kind of lines of rewards. The first is gas fees. So 50% of the gas fees on the network are recycled and redirected back to developers. 25% of the inflationary rewards go back to the dApps and the developers. And then the third, which is optional, is what we call contract premiums. And so that's up to the developer to define themselves. If they do define a fee, that's baked into this composite network fee. So the user only is presented with one single fee. But all of those are happening within the Arch token. And so those rewards are redistributed back to dApps and developers in Arch.
Crypto Addict, real quick, when mainnet launch?
Yeah, so first, fantastic question. First is we're doing an incentivized testnet. End of next month, possibly early February. We'll see how the dates shake out, and then shortly thereafter, mainnet. So mainnet will likely fall at the tail end of Q1 or possibly early Q2.
Cool. An Archway summer.
Yes.
All right. While they're brewing up some questions, I actually have a couple last ones that we could tackle if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
Cool. I was actually kind of wondering, what are some ways that Archway will integrate with other chains and services throughout Cosmos?
The possibilities are endless, really.
Yeah, there's kind of a lot going on nowadays. Like we got, EVM most, and then we have obviously IBC, all of the dexes. Do you guys kind of have a battle strategy for integrations, or what can we look forward to with that?
Yeah, absolutely. With IBC, anything is possible, right? Or just about anything. And so, yeah, some of the things that we're thinking about, we definitely have a plan to work with the major dexes, our friends at Osmosis and SipChain and Gravity Dex, right? Helping integrate and get liquidity and get pools up and running. Certainly integrating with the major wallets, so Kepler, Emrys, Cosmos Station, making sure that we make the chain and the app ecosystem accessible to actual end users. I think on the NFT front, what comes to my mind is Secret's doing really, really interesting and incredible stuff, obviously. I'm a Tarantino fan myself personally. And so I was excited to see all that stuff happening a month or so back. Stargaze is obviously cooking up tons of cool stuff. Those are both CosmWasm chains. And so I think there'd be a natural fit to find some collaboration there. As IBC support rolls out for NFTs, would love to start experimenting on the frontier of cross-chain NFTs with projects like that. Another cool one we've been thinking about is with Region. Would love to see some sort of application or use of the rewards where a dApp funnels their rewards back towards purchasing eco credits on a region. I imagine something like that would be of interest to lots of folks. So yeah, things like that.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. The carbon neutral smart contracts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Baked right in.
All right. I guess
I'm stealing that phrase from you, Johnny.
What's
Carbon
that?
neutral smart contracts.
I mean, it's a great idea. Like did you did you watch the hearings yesterday for the U.S.?
I miss them. I've seen some chatter, but
For sure. I
anything.
was kind of working with that stuff in the background, and they had a pretty heavy focus on they were pretty mad about the carbon footprint of
Hmm.
Bitcoin specifically. So I think if we're gonna, get to adoption, it's kind of gonna be an important barrier. It's just our energy usage.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's really top of mind with a lot of people. All of like a large majority of the projects and the partners and like sort of the prospective partners that we chat with, that inevitably comes up, right? And
Hmm.
and so I think that's a powerful part of the proposition for Tendermint based chains and Cosmos as a whole.
Totally, yeah. Just real quick, Crypto Addict wants to know, when can we become validators? I filled some forms.
Yes, yeah. So we will likely open that up in the next few weeks. I think at some point this month, um, we will open that up, and I think you can actually spin up the network within a Docker instance right now. If you have any trouble with that, head over to our Discord, and the team can walk you through. But it will be completely open at some point this month. And also in the meantime, all of the validator docs are pretty thorough and fantastic. So we've heard from lots of people so far. Shout out to Drew on our team for putting those together. So if you want to take a look in the meantime, got them up here. Just drop that into the chat.
There you go. Perfect. All right, just a couple last more questions, and then for those watching in the audience, we're happy to take questions. There's probably about 10, 15 minutes left of this interview, so get them in while you can. I think a lot of people want to know, actually, Mike, how is Archway different from other smart contract platforms?
Yeah, so in general, right, like relative to the overall landscape being native to Cosmos with native IBC integrations, that obviously unlocks direct access to the ever-growing universe that is IBC.
Hmm.
But then within the Cosmos space, right, there's a handful of other smart contract platforms that are all amazing and fantastic. And I think all these projects are kind of building and experimenting in their own unique ways. And as everyone's taking their own approach, we expect they'll evolve accordingly and kind of like their own organic communities and ecosystems will take shape over time. And so you see that with like Terra's ecosystem, everything revolving around UST. Secret, as I'd mentioned, is doing the privacy by default thing and some other great ones. For Archway, it's an open permissionless CosmWasm chain. I think where it really like fundamentally differs is the economic model. I don't mean to beat a dead horse. I talked at length about that, but it really is a pretty drastic departure from other network designs, whether you're talking about just a pure proof of stake network or a proof of stake based smart contract platform. What we're doing with the dApp rewards is just a completely different and novel incentive model. And so that's really where I see it kind of taking its own path and forming its own identity. There's other like sort of bells, whistles, nuances. One other area I think that we are really focused on and working hard around is developer experience.
Hmm.
I know that like sounds like a given, and it's like who doesn't want a great developer experience, but it is early days. CosmWasm is a tremendous leap forward, but it's as it is today, like it's not super simple to build a dApp, and so we're going hard on actually building out the tooling for the ecosystem. With, as I mentioned, our dApp CLI, we're putting together all these reference implementations, these starter code templates, looking at building out the IDEs, plugins, things like linters, just putting a ton into the docs, and also exploring training materials to just make it easier for people to actually build and launch these things.
Sure. So for people that are interested in using it, Archway, is it working on Rust?
It is, yeah.
Okay. So they would basically install the configurations and the compiler, and then as long as they knew how to code in Rust, they could start going, they could get going. Like, what are some good resources for them to get started?
The developer docs are really where it's at. I will drop the specific point at which you would want to start directly in the channel here.
Perfect.
So that'll walk you through step by step. And I think it's on that page there. Oh wait, I'm gonna drop in one more link. Yeah, that the first will walk you through, straight from the install and so on. The second is what I had mentioned before, some of the front end dApp examples that we've started releasing, and the starter code templates. So that should give you some context and reference point around what sort of a full stack implementation looks like, from the chain all the way up to the front end.
Cool. Yeah. You were saying that it's in testnet right now. Incentivized testnet probably starts early next year. So that's kind of the point where people want to start really getting into it, I would say.
I would say today. Why not today, Johnny?
Yeah, they could start. That's true. The Hack Atom is going, and
yeah, I'm half joking, but yeah, I mean, it's ready. It's exciting to see that we've got people building, right? It's as part of Hack Atom. I think that's really lit a fire, and fortunately brought a lot of attention to where we're at. But
good.
Yeah, things are open. We're starting to see the first few projects trickle in for Hack Atom, which is really exciting. But yeah, we're ready, and people are building today. So so don't be shy.
There we go. That's great to hear, actually. Yeah. Best time is now.
Indeed.
I got a question here from Whirlwind. Do you want to tackle it? I think they want to know about how we're going to start private funding rounds or an ICO, or what's the initial distribution of Archway going to look like?
That, I think we're figuring all that out right now. Nothing to share at this point. But yeah, we're working with the legal team and making sure everything's all squared away and above board, and then we'll hopefully announce details around all of that in the next month or so.
Yeah, fair enough. Cool. I have one last question, actually, and then for those of you watching, please feel free to throw down any questions. We're actually here at the end of the interview, so it's kind of your last call. I just wanted to wrap it up, Mike, with what do you have next on the roadmap? What are you most excited about? And what kind of things can we look forward to with Archway?
So we've got a major release actually that's wrapping up, I think, tomorrow. That'll be focused around stability, bug fixes, performance, and then after that, really our eyes are on incentivized testnet, as I'd mentioned, and then getting things prepped and in place and production ready for a mainnet launch shortly thereafter, hopefully at the end of Q1. Beyond that, developer experience and tooling. Again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but that is, yeah, it's difficult to overstate the importance of all that, and so we're treating it accordingly, and the team's going to be super focused around just updates to the Archway dApp CLI, more reference implementations, more templates, a lot more to come on the training materials and educational resources. So stay tuned on that one, and then also just spending a lot of time and energy in helping projects actually build and launch and get up and live. And so I think, yeah, that last part is probably the piece that I'm personally most excited about. It's just the actual building, right? It's been a theory and a concept for so long, and the team's been doing just so much work to actually bring it to life. And so it's really fun to hit this point where we're starting to open it up to the world and see folks come and building. And so yeah, thrilled to see what comes through for Hack Atom, and then hopefully some of those projects stick around and keep building with their concept and their submission, and we'll get more folks in the mix as well.
Perfect. Yeah, that's actually pretty darn exciting, isn't it? You got your product ready. How long has Archway been in development?
Really earlier this year, it was kind of conceived and starting to be fleshed out.
Mm-hmm.
Much of the engineering team was brought on kind of around when I joined in the early summer, and so that's when the actual building kicked off. But yeah, it's been in the works for quite a bit. It's been a long haul, and yeah, excited to get it out there in the world.
Nice. So don't be sad with the question we could not avoid. Are there any airdrops planned?
Yeah, we're figuring out ways where we can benefit the Cosmos ecosystem and make sure that we've got a thoroughly well-balanced and distributed supply of Arch tokens. So no real concrete details to share on that front just yet, but we'll do our best to get them out there as soon as possible and keep you posted.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds like you guys are still thinking about it. Wattori from Wattori Studios, looks like he's a dev and he's been playing with it. He actually has some nice things to say. Archway doc's really helpful, tested by my own straightforward intro to smart contracts deployment.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you for the kind words. Again, that's a shout out to Drew and Augusto on our team. They've been doing tons of work around that and clearly paying off.
Yeah, no, this docs page is really clean. Like looking through it, I can go exactly where I want to go, learn what I need to learn, and then looks like you guys have some guides, some examples. It's pretty thorough.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great. Well, thanks for doing this, Mike. This was actually, for me, really informative. I hope people also feel that way, and we'll be putting it on the YouTube channel a little later, kind of get some more reach for it, but this was great.
Yeah, thanks so much, Johnny. I really appreciate the time. Always happy to chat with you personally. So a pleasure, and yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in and the wonderful questions.
Yeah, we do have one last one here if you want to tackle it. When will validators be announced?
So there's no announcement of validators, so the network will just be opened up in probably a couple weeks time in preparation for the incentivized testnet, and then anyone is free to participate, to onboard and participate.
Cool. Yeah, sometime next year. And what can we do in the meantime for the project?
I would say just drop it into the Discord and join the community. Like I said, all of our teams there, they're all fantastic people and readily available, and so we can chat directly and figure out where specifically you might be able to jump in and start helping out.
There's that
and
link
where we
on.
might be able to help you.
There we go. It sounds like
Yeah,
it's
you got it.
very supportive, you guys. Cool. All right, everybody. Thanks for your time. Thank you, Mike. I think we're going to end it here.
Johnny, thank you again. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too. There we go.